Hello and welcome to this episode of the Ranting Atheist podcast. Today we'll be listening to the fourth part of the room that was titled Christianity is not a religion. And I don't need to tell you that Christians did not answer straightforward. They deflected. The cognitive dissonance was hitting them goes left and right. So let's cut to the chase. Let's go straight into it. Let's go and hear the usual trope and learn from it. But before we do that, if you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, and YouTube also, and many other places that podcasts are available. Then also, please rate and review this podcast if your platform allows it, and share with your friends online and offline if you are safe. Please. So let's go and listen to Christians saying Christianity is not a religion.
But I have a question for you, and I'm really sorry. I don't mean to come across as, imposing, but how, maybe this might derail the conversation a little bit, but I want to understand your journey to this particular belief. Like, how did you get here? How did you try to marry science to, in quote, spirituality?
I'm going to start by saying this. I was going to say this before you kind of asked me questions and then disrupt my train of thought. I was going to say that we're emotional beings. So everything we do is translated into a certain emotion. And then we use logic to calculate it. So the laws of nature, right, translate into humans as emotions. We feel things. We feel that thing, and that feeling is emotional, is based on emotions. And that's when we talk about humanity, we're talking about empathy. So when we dissect all these emotions one by one, they start to understand how we connect to nature. That is how I see things.
Okay. But human beings and humanity is not
humility. I'm sorry.
I'll
to clarify so that you don't mistake me.
Yeah, sure.
When we talk about humanity and empathy, where does it come from? Why do we have to show empathy to someone? And what are the laws that govern these things? Because all around, people conform to or attest to that humanity responsibility of humans. And they are tied to emotions, to a certain emotion. Oh, I want to show you empathy. I want to show you kindness. And these things are kind of required from us in a certain way, whether you're religious or spiritual.
Okay, so to answer your question about empathy is actually a result of community. Empathy is one thing you would see in communes and not just in human beings, but in animals. In order for a society to grow, you have to look at the cross between selfishness and the longevity of the society. Everybody has needs, the needs that will better the society. If we decide to come together and form a community, we need to set aside our own personal selfishness. You need to consider the needs of other people. If we know that together, united we stand, and you want to build a society, the idea of society is what gives birth to empathy in order to, create the longevity of a society. The idea that in order for the society to move forward together, you have to put aside some of your personal selfishness and think of the other person. Because if everybody starts deciding to, put their own personal needs ahead of the need of the community, it's all going to fall apart. And you see it in terms of animals that live together. You see it in, animals that, that live in packs, mothers that give birth to their children, who normally would go out and bring food for their children, because they understand that we are going to live together. Even in this thing, our cousins, the chimpanzees and the apes, people who, again, sorry, I'm using people, but species that live together tend to show empathy. And it's not even empathy towards their own kind, but empathy to even other species that live around them.
I agree with
I
you
agree with
because I know
because
that
I know that
apes
apes
show
grow.
empathy, and they even practice a tradition where I think the animals that practice a tradition whereby when someone in their kin dies, they mourn the person for a few bits. I think there are birds, there are certain birds that do that, and I think the elephants too also do that. I agree with you on that one, and that's why I'm saying that if this thing tied to, because for me, right, nature is full of intention, and every intention nature kinds of produce has a goal, has a goal, has a direction. So I check that intention and I see, like you said, if you go against it, that's why I say the laws of nature. If you go against it, what is it going to bring to you? If you go with it, what is it going to do with you? That means nature intended for that thing to be that way. It wasn't because you discovered it. It was because that was what it was.
But what I'm
So if
saying
we
is
that's what I'm
empathy
saying,
is
that the
not
laws of nature
natural.
sort of
That's what I'm saying. Like, if you
produces
look
what we
at the
see, right?
human nature, it is not in the human nature for us to be empathetic. And it shows in society. It shows in the fact that even within society, we always try to form a superior faction. You have race, you have, even within communities, you have tribalism, you have gender disparities. Inherently, we always want to look out for what is best for us. The natural law, every living being, the first law is survival. You always have to look out for yourself, self-sufficiency. So if you're saying that it is natural for me to look at myself and say that I'm going to forgive this for the sake of community, then that is actually wrong. It is not natural for us to be empathetic.
I'm going to say this: we can choose to be selfish, but when we let's look at it from us, right? Do we want somebody to be selfish to us? Then we'll get the answer. People can decide to be, I want to kill this person, but would you accept that when they do it to you? Then you get the answer. Because sometimes we look from the outside, we don't look inward. Now, when you talk about social construct, we have to also understand that the Egyptians, those ones who built the pyramids, right? When we check their history, they were people of peace. They were people of peace. They wanted peace. They didn't even they were not trying to build a place whereby, oh, we're fighting each other and all of that. They wanted to be in harmony with nature. So for me, yeah, I'm going to say this. I think humans, we've lost our way for so long that we don't know how to live with nature anymore. We don't know ourselves. We've disconnected from who we are, and we're not at peace with ourselves. So how we are living is how we take on ourselves. It's not what we really are. So when we discover who we are, we would live in peace and harmony. The goal is not your goal. The goal is you're not living alone. You're living with things. You're living with animals. You're living with the air. You're living with water. How do you live with water whereby you produce an harmonious relationship? I'll give you an example. There was a scientific study whereby they went into a particular village. And in that village, I think, okay, let's not even go there. When they do bomb testing, everything in that society gets contaminated. Everything gets damaged. Now that means there's an imbalance. That means you're not the only thing that is affected, right? And also, I was going to say something about. I'm going to say something before this. I was going to say that for me, I look at things this way. When we go, the only thing that remains in this world is memories. As we are now, we are living in the memories of people that have died. We have to even go and revisit that memory. And that's why people say people don't die.
Sorry, please come again. You said we are living in memories of people that have died.
if you go to school now, we're all going to school. We'll have to go to school, right, to learn something. Somebody did that. We have to learn about the person. And if you go deeper and you say, okay, I want to become a lawyer, you have to learn about a group of people who have done a lot of work, who have solved a lot of problems. What are you doing? We're revisiting their memory. It's because they did it. That's why you can find it. And if we look at technology now, when your phone reminds you of what you did 2 years ago, it's your memory is trying to bring back to you. So we now have a technology whereby if 500 years from now, people can go and check, oh, what happened to this person? And they can see the person's profile, they can see this person's picture, and they can, people even do that now. Kobe Bryant died and they're still posting his picture. That's his memory. And also, it's scientifically proven that water keeps and hold memory. Water keeps and hold memory.
Sorry, it's just.
I'm sorry for laughing. I'm so sorry. I apologize for laughing. I'm really sorry. I'm sorry.
I beg, let's move on. Like, I'm tired of everybody, coming out to Lori and, saying, I don't agree with this.
Okay, yeah.
But Ranting and Jadon, I want to say something.
Okay, Benjamin. What is it on Lori again?
Yeah, you see, no. I've said my piece about what I said.
Okay.
I'm just trying to say something. Have you noticed somehow that when I said what I said and I was being called and corrected, everybody ended up saying exactly what I said. For one, we talked about they were talking about spirits, and we're talking about spirits being essence. I said spirits are essences of feelings. And now we're talking about spirit being emotion. Is emotion not feeling again?
It's feeling.
We're talking about
feeling.
We're talking. So what did I say? We're talking about. I was like, let's define these things. The dictionaries are not far from us. Let's get a compound knowledge of what we're talking about, and then see things through the right context, not what people think those things are. Because it's English language. We are discussing in English, and every word here has a meaning. And they are by virtue of luck, or what will I say, or a thought-out process. There are dictionaries, and we could find the meanings of these words and declutter it from our minds and then correct ourselves. I was not imposing my idea on anybody. I'm just saying, let's get the dictionary meaning.
Sorry, I want to point out that the fact that we do not say anything when these things are being discussed does not mean we agree with it.
It's true. No, I don't expect anybody to agree
with the definition of, religion. Not everybody agrees, but some people just choose to be quiet. Majority of the things that Olori said, are interesting, but I do not agree with it.
What I'm saying is, if you pick up a dictionary and check these words, just like you did a couple of times here, you'll find out that either we are interjecting our own meanings into these words and then trying to take them for what we think they are. But English language has made it easy for us to understand what these words actually mean. I don't know if you get what I mean. It will reduce our arguments or misunderstanding of each other. And why I called Jadon, you said a couple of things about quarks and energies and understanding physics. And I was like, oh, my kind of guy. Honestly, I didn't even want to tread that path. I'm big into physics too. I'm big into chemistry and biology. I'm kind of doing some kind of small scientific thinking. I'm into plenty of stuff. I trick engines and I do this. And then we talk about physics and laws of physics and nature. And I asked the question, do we judge nature and existence based on the fact that we're on this planet Earth? Do we think Earth is the center for which all of nature exhibits itself? As a matter of fact, like I said, we are like on a beach and all we know is a grain of sand. And we use that one grain of sand to justify every other thing. There are a lot of, we talk about laws of nature, there are a lot of times nature itself breaks its own laws. And we judge these laws of nature because we're on this planet Earth. Get out of Earth. Look at things from a bigger universal scale. You find out that what we think is arranged and beautifully put in water cycle and all that means nothing. It means absolutely nothing. Jupiter, as we talk about, doesn't have a surface where you could stand on top. But it's one of the largest planets in our solar system with mass. But in the relativity of this whole existence, Jupiter is not even seen by an electron microscope. We're only seeing these things because we're on this planet, and we can only judge the rest of existence from this planet. But when we get to start understanding the molecular composition of matter, we start understanding relativity in matter, we start understanding nuclear physics, astrophysics, we start understanding, time, light, space travel, we start understanding the build-up of atomic elements and quarks and energies. You start understanding that most of these things we see on Earthscape only happens because we're on this planet. Once you move away from this planet, all the variables change. How much more of those other variables in nature do we know to use Earthscape to judge the rest of the universe? That's what I was only trying to say. It's not like I was bashing on anybody's point of view or style of thinking of making anybody or imposing mine on anybody. I'm just trying to say, let's define words first. Then when we define these words, let's expand our scope of study beyond Earthscape, because Earthscape is not a function, it's not a constant on the existence in the universe. That's just what I'm saying. It's my subjection, and I might be very wrong.
Thank you. You're not wrong, go.
Thank you.
I wanted to say something. While we're all going up and down what we're saying, I do want to express a point of agreement with Olori that I think I agree with her upon, and I think everybody should, and I'm saying this as a prescription in a sense, that we should agree with her on this, and that's that. And I'm not even relating this to humans who lived in the past. Now, no matter what the status of humans who lived in the past was, humans living currently, the global society, the global community and all that, we are horrible at knowing what to do with ourselves. We are very good at messing nature up. And we don't really care. I mean, she used the word ignorance, that the people who are living now are much more ignorant of nature than the past. I wouldn't really say ignorant. I would just say that we are more apathetic. We are more selfish. We're more there's less empathy. Like Ifedolapo said, there's less. It's not something that really comes naturally to us. We're so terrible at doing. We're so terrible at living. We're so terrible at. I'm sort of struggling to find the words to express.
I don't quite agree.
The point,
and I have my
the essential
point. I don't quite agree.
Okay, all right, no problem. That's fine. But I think I would say I agree with her on that. I think there's so much more we can do in terms of better living, better treatment of the environment, better treatment of animals, and a lot of people are doing that now. With more people becoming vegan and animal rights being championed all over the world and all that. There's movements in that direction, but it's not entire yet. It's still preliminary, still in its infantile stage. And I think that at least on that point I agree with her. So, but anyone can disagree, and of course I'd like to hear.
Sorry, can I just put this points? Can I just put this points?
Are lions vegans?
Lions are not vegans, but lions are not humans.
Why are they not?
Because they evolved to eat, because they're carnivores, I should say. And if your point is
your answer just made me understand something. These animals are living true to their nature. You get?
Yeah.
Right? They are living true to their nature. You saying humans should start being vegetarians and all that. Is it we living true to our nature?
First of all, that was.
I don't think he meant it like humans, meaning I don't think he meant it like humans being vegetarians and all that. He's just talking about the awareness of us being close to nature. But this is where.
First of all, that was what I said. I'm sorry, let me quickly respond to Maverick. I think just a few words, and then I would really like to listen to what you want to say, Benjamin. So first of all, like Benjamin correctly said, I wasn't saying that all humans should be vegans. I'm not a vegan myself. I still eat meat, even though I'm actively trying to cut it down now. It's a huge struggle because I really love chocolate.
Hey.
So there's that. But I did not say that all humans should go vegan. My point then was that there is more. I mean, there should be more awareness about ways in which you can respect nature more. And one of those ways is to respect animal rights. And one of the ways in which people have said animal rights can be respected is by not eating them or wearing them as leather and stuff like that. That's one point. Secondly, comparing humans with lions in this case is not. I think it's a false equivalence. And the reason why I think it's a false equivalence is because, agreed, humans are biologically omnivores, but that's not all that there is to humans. We are also beings of reason. We are also capable of making consciously, rationally thought out decisions. We are also, capable of inventing alternatives that, can at least spare some other life forms from experiencing harm or suffering or pain, or from decimating the environment in one way or the other. Lions are incapable of doing this. So we can't just say, well, lions are living to their true nature. We should also live to our true nature. One could even argue that our true nature is to be rational in that sense. So I think there's a bit of that false equivalence there. So that's just what I wanted to say, Mr. Maverick. I hope you got that.
Okay.
Okay, Jadon, this is where I was not wanting to accept with us saying the olden days were a lot, closer to nature than we are now.
Hold on. Sorry. Before you say that, I did not say that the olden days were better or were closer to nature or something. Anybody who listened to what I said would understand. What I said was, I'm not comparing. I'm saying whether those people were better than us or worse than us doesn't really matter to my own point. What I would agree with Olorion is that right now we are horrible at living life. And that is true, even if those who were in the past were worse off than us. That's just my point.
I understand. Right now we are horrible at living life, but we were never better. I don't think we were better.
That's not really relevant to what I said.
Yeah, I know.
It's possible that we were not better.
I know, but
it's possible that we were not better. But I can say for a fact that 200 years ago we were not pumping plastics into the oceans. Of course, you could argue that we didn't have plastics back then, but the fact still remains that we didn't have stuff to pump into the oceans where other animals' existence would be in jeopardy because of our own actions.
Sorry, Semeton wants to say something. Semeton, sorry.
All right, thank you. So I like with regards to what Chidin is saying and Olori, I beg to disagree a little bit. I mean, in the past 200 years ago, no one was pumping plastic into the ocean and all. But one thing I think that we're ignoring here is population explosion we've experienced in recent times. You see, most of the issues we have today, especially with regards to climate change and all of those things, might be attributed to recklessness, which has always existed. But the point is that we are looking at a huge number of people. It's this very, very tough to try to control what's going on. Let me just give an instance. If I let's say get a sachet of water and then I take it, I'm just generating just one waste. Now compare that to over 7 billion people. That's a whole lot of things. So yes, I don't think that it's just that maybe people are living horrible lives. It's just that we are faced. It's necessary. It comes with the fact that we have more people that must also undergo different processes. I mean, the industrial revolution we had that actually increased the carbon content that we have. I'm not even trying to defend that anyways, but it's just that the industrial revolution we have and every revolution we've had, even like
Did we lose him?
Oh, the devil has taken the voice of Mr. Semeton. We need to pray in tongues for him.
Lekos Scalabas.
Scalabake.
Okay. Jadon,
Well, I need to let me quickly respond to what Semeton said. I agree that the population is increasing. So of course it's not just that we are worse off. Like I said before, whether we were worse off in the past or we were better off isn't really relevant to my point. My own point is that right now we're not doing a good job. That's the thing. Now that could be because of the population size. Yes, I agree. I agree with that a lot. But then this would point in the direction that population is one of our problems. which I've also said this before. I'm actually, in a sense, an advocate for. In a sense, of course, the population not by killing people, but by reducing birth rates all over the world, and not just by reducing birth
Bless
rates
your
alone,
heart,
because
bro. Bless you.
because that alone is not going to be sufficient. But empowering women will also help to reduce the population of the world. Better education. I mean, all sorts of things that we can do if we just made, this, if we just made society a better place, the population would reduce consequently. But the problem is that when you talk to a lot of people, they tell you that there's no problem. They tell you that, what do you mean the population is increasing? There's no population increasing anything. I've spoken with people like that before. And as a matter of fact, some people even use religion to justify this. They use Christianity particularly, or the Bible, I should say. Oh, God said, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and replenish it.
Keep knocking.
Nothing is
Keep
going to
fucking.
happen, whatever.
Hoorah.
And also,
But
some even go on to say something like, well, Jesus is going to come soon anyway, so what's the point? I mean, not a lot of people say this. Not a lot of people say this, but I've heard this in some quarters before, that I mean, this world is heading for destruction anyway. The Bible says is it Second Peter chapter 3, that the elements are going to be melted off with heat or stuff like that. So what's the point of doing anything about it? What's the point of, I might as well have 6 children whom I'm not going to be able to cater for properly, so they have to defecate.
Wow. Anyway.
Okay, so see, you can talk.
What was happening now?
Yeah, sorry, it was my connection. So the essential point I'm just making is that even though it is true that there is a population problem, it is also true that we are mostly responsible for that problem. The increase in population is not an inexorable match of nature. It's not something that it's not like nature is marching us forward and forcing us to reproduce, and we don't have any control over it. We do have control over it, but the simple fact is that many people don't even want to control that in the first place. Many people are not using birth control. Many people don't want to use condoms, or maybe get a vasectomy or whatever it is that's going to help with the issue of the population and all that. So these are the kind of things that we need to consider.
See, this population had always been increasing, okay, and there were factors that led to the population increasing. All we can do is flatten out the curve by controlling childbirth, not reducing. We can't reduce population increase. We cannot. If you say we have to reduce it, who will we kill? How will we start it? But people will always get born, and people will give.
It's actually possible. I think there are some countries that have reversed. I think some countries like Singapore,
they flattened the curve.
Japan.
They flattened the curve, not reduced it. They've flattened the exponential growth rate, not
Are you sure about that? Oh no, okay. Well,
they're not fewer now.
I may need to look that up. Because I think I read the report. I read the report some years ago.
China's estimation is to reduce in population by 2050, though. That's
what year did you call 2050? So the old people will die. What they need to do, what they did was,
the law is like a one-child thing. So if two couples, if a couple have a child, it is expected that you slice the population down by some number, because it's just one kid per family.
The thing is this: if there are 1 billion people in China, 1 billion males and 1 billion females, okay, make it 2 billion people, and they're going to have kids. They're still going to have one kid each, right? Instead of having 3 or 4, they can flatten out the curve. They will still increase, but they will increase at a more controllable rate. Population will always increase.
Assume this hypothetical case makes a lot of assumptions that are not going to be tenable in the real world. For example, you assume that all the families are going to give birth, which is not going to happen.
No. I'm not assuming. What I'm saying is, no, try to get me. What I'm saying is, the population increase you're talking about is that exponential number is increasing rapidly. We cannot stop population from increasing. It has never stopped increasing. We can only slow down the process. by proper education, proper child-birth control, and all of that, increasing child mortality, reducing child mortality or fatality rates, and all that. We can do that. We can control all that. But the fact that you say a population of a place reduce, there are consequences to it economically too. So
Yeah,
we can
you have a
flatten, we
point.
can
But
slow down the
the thing is,
curve. We can slow down the curve, but
my
same
point, the
the
point that me
population of
I'm
the
making
people,
is
even
this.
in whoa,
The point I'm making is this. The point I'm making is this. The contingent, that's the population itself, is dependent on the population growth rate as well.
yes, that's what okay, we are
I
saying the
mean,
same thing,
I'm not really
different languages.
I'm not really
Okay,
a populations expert or something like that. But the point I
I did
mean, what
economics.
I'm trying to
My
say is that,
my primary certification was economics, so that's
oh,
part of
that's
it
great,
too.
that's awesome.
Ah,
So
that's
yeah,
what I'm saying
and
is
I agree with you that there will be economic. I agree with you that there will be economic repercussions for that. But what
serious
I
one.
was just trying to say is that if you flatten the growth rate, the population growth rate, if you flatten that, it's not going to keep the population at the same level. It's going to drop. That's just what I'm saying.
It's yes, it's
The
going to
overall
retain
population now, not the rate.
yeah,
The overall population.
okay. Uh-huh.
All
Well,
right. So
I
if
don't
you're
think it
looking
will,
for
but
an
then
example of a
meanwhile, I want to say
population
something.
that is shrinking, you should look at this thing, Japan. They have in the past had to in Asia, there are countries where they actually pay you to have children because their population was shrinking. Um, there was
Yeah,
this
this was
article
actually the report
where
I
they
was
were
talking
talking
about.
about why young people in Japan and there is this mentality, they call it the anti-natalist movement. I myself am an anti-natalist. I have no, like, I don't really believe in, always populating. I am not going to have children. Um, Japan, by 2060, according to, speculations, is actually projected to plummet to a third of their current population, which was around 126 million, as at, I think, maybe 2013 or so, because they have something they call the celibacy syndrome. It is possible. So all this you cannot is actually not true.
Well,
Yeah, I think it's very
no
possible.
arguments
Very,
against.
very possible.
And that's very true. Very, very.
Okay, back to what I wanted to say before I forget to. When we were saying that in the past they were more close to nature than now, and they were both talking about peace and then harmony with nature. Nah, man, it's like we forget history. Oh. Back in the past, the wars were plenty. It's not like now. Every community was almost fighting every other community, and it was not like now where you hear on the news 6 soldiers were killed or 7 soldiers were killed. It was all out war. Thousands of people die. They like stand right in front of each other. Then the dead bodies, just so that they would combat stench and all that, could not most of the times they could not be buried. They just took them and threw into the sea. If in a place
If
where
war
they
does
couldn't
not
do
kill
anything, they
you,
burnt
disease will
them.
kill you.
Wait now, I'm coming. They burnt them. And one of the funny things about back in the days is that when they take over a city or a village, especially one that of people of different belief system or different ideologies, you know what they did? They burnt those places. So when we talk about greenhouse effects, it didn't just start because of our economical, our whatever, our industrial revolution. It wasn't the only thing that started this whole greenhouse effect. As a matter of fact, it's 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 an accumulation of all these things over time. An accumulation of all these things
Hmm.
over time. And whether we like it or
I'm not
not,
sure.
it's
I'm not
inevitable.
sure I entirely agree with that.
I mean, right now there are more emissions. I mean, our cars, our combustion systems. Yes, I agree. But saying that those people in those days were a lot closer or understood nature better than us now, that's we are trying to just look at our small communities and then judge the way our communities, practice to appreciate themselves.
Sorry, please, I want
And
to
to
add
think that I'm
something
sorry.
to what he just said. The reason why people are no longer in quote spiritual is because we've gotten more logical and gotten more proof to understanding the world. There is no way that you can say that you want to be spiritual when you understand how the earth works, that there is a solar system. Because in those days, and I don't know. Sorry, is there like a place where you can text? Because I found I was texting the moderator instead of sending it to the group. I don't really know how the platform works. There's
No
something called
texting, no
Nah,
anthropomorphy.
texting.
there's no group messages on Clubhouse.
Oh, okay. So the idea of anthropomorphism is actually looking at the world and attributing human traits to it. So you had people who worshipped the sun because they did not understand stars and did not understand astronomy. You cannot understand the world with science. The increase in science will surely continue to clamp down on spirituality and religion, because spirituality is like a universal set of things we do not understand. And the idea of science is continue to understand how the world works. So if you're going to continue to understand how the world works, so spirituality will continue shrinking till I don't know. So that's what I was just going to
I
say.
wish I wish I gave you a hug for this. Thank you.
I want to ask a question.
I said that too.
Sorry, I want to ask something. Like, let's imagine for the sake of hypotheticals that there's a maybe sort of dimension that has some weird beings that we don't like. They don't comply to our set of nature. Yeah. So if let's say we're able to find one way to study these beings, would we just say they are part of the natural world, or what exactly would we call them?
I'll call them aliens in mass.
Okay, I think that makes sense.
I quickly jump to that kind of answer, because when you talk about dimensions, what do we mean dimensions? How do we define the word dimensions or another dimension? How do we access this another dimension if it's not physical, if it's not going to be scientifically proven, and if it's not going to be evidential? How? For us to assess this other place or this other thing we want to call a dimension, it means it has to have some proof of evidence. It has to be tangible. It has to make some kind of physical sense. And if we can make physical sense of it and control the parameters to which you could get there and back, then it's no longer what we term spiritual or eternal or whatever. It's now another cause of reality that we have to live in. If tomorrow we discover it's not just one universe, it's a multiverse, and there are facts to show that, it's automatically what it is. We now live in the new reality. But then, if those things are not, what you call a dimension is not, it doesn't have a proof of evidence, then it remains inside the mind of those people that think it is like that. And there's nothing real about it.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
My view.
I get your view. It just seems like I don't know, maybe Jide can help me out here, but it just seems like we are sort of presupposing naturalism. Yeah, Jide, do you get what I mean?
Yeah, it sounds like that, but it's very difficult. I mean, there are many people who even disagree with that distinction between naturalism and supernaturalism, because both terms are very difficult to define. Because you have to, when you say naturalism is the study of natural things, well, it's just like naturalism is the study of naturalism in a sense. So I mean, it's difficult to pass out.
But wait, I'm coming.
Philosophers always find a way around this.
When we say supernatural, what are we talking about? There are two words here, supernatural. What are we talking about?
Something beyond the natural.
That's the thing now. And I keep saying we complicate we find ways to just make ourselves twisted and complicated. If it's beyond the natural, how do we have evidence for it? How do we have facts to find it? So anybody can slap his thighs and come up with something, and it's supernatural as long as he has a proof, an ideology, something to tell you about cause and effect. See, I don't know. I'm Bayelsa, okay? I keep saying that. There's this tradition in our town where they use basket, they weave a basket and they use the fetching water, and people drink from it and they say it's juju. My brother, when I got to know the whole idea behind the thing, it lost its magic to me. It's some kind of reed. When they start weaving it, the sap holds together, so it forms some hard adhesive. Bro, the thing floats people. They use it, it's like boats. So when I realized that stuff, the whole juju faded. But these people have known these things. They are not, or they have either known it or not known it. They heard it that they are secret. There's some secret codes or whatever. And then people were like, wow, look at that. His basket is holding water. I don't know
That's
if you
really
feel me.
You know,
Someone says
they have to keep
super.
it. They have to keep it secret. They have to keep it
Yes.
secret because
So
keeping
when
it
we when they
secret
say,
is what makes them use it to control people, to wow people,
thank
to
you.
have that sort of
When they say
superiority over people.
supernatural, I ask them again, what do you mean supernatural if you already know the natural? How is natural super? Supernatural is still natural now. It's just the natural part that you didn't really know about before. So when you say natural and supernatural, just like you're talking about man and Superman. He's another man that just could fly, could do this, that. Hey, look, he's in the skies. That's just it. We try to make it, we complicate ourselves too much. The moment you start understanding those things and having an in and out pattern, a doorway to get there and back, it loses that power it had on your mind. It becomes evidential, it becomes fact, it becomes reality, it becomes natural, it becomes manipulatable, and that's it. It becomes natural. So there's actually no supernatural. It's just because people just don't understand them.
Enore, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly. Enore Michael. She hasn't. Is that person a he or she? I'm not sure. But they haven't said anything at all. Oh, okay.
No, she
hasn't said anything.
She spoke a while back because she's just observing, I think.
Okay. Maybe I was absent then, but I was like, I just noticed that this person hasn't said anything. And Bright too. Okay, I think I heard when Bright said some things earlier. Well, only at that time. No, at all that time. Okay, so that's it for me.
12 don't pass.
So from Christianity is not a religion. We don't enter this one.
So new age. New age book.
But with the science won't keep us. Hey, we.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Hi.
And whenever you bring up this charge of, but this is to the scientific, one response that you usually get is, you're basing your science on Western knowledge. And Western knowledge is not the only kind of knowledge. There's other knowledge as well, And then you get accused of stuff like scientism.
How do you test it?
Scientism,
How do you test it? How do you confirm? How do you check the laws of nature?
Their response to that are all those things are Western ideas. They are Western imports. Like it's not like every society in the world has to conform to Western ideologies. That for other societies, like African societies, for example, they have their own way of knowing stuff. I had a very long conversation on Twitter with there was a guy whom I knew him from Facebook, from my Facebook days. He was a Christian, but then he became an Ifa, I don't know
pantheist.
Not really a pantheist in that sense, but it was concretely an Ifa adherent, an Ifa spiritualist.
He was a traditionalist.
An Ifa religion adherent. Yeah, I don't really like most traditionalists because
he sounds
very deflationary.
African traditional religion.
Because the thing is, the point is, it seems you are when you say traditionalist. For me, it sounds a little bit like you are relegating the religion compared to the ones that came from, Europe or from Arabia or from other places like that. They are really. I mean, traditional religions are full-fledged religions.
No.
Sometimes I think about Yoruba religion.
But it's traditional to those people.
Yeah, it's traditional to them. But again, the point is this: Yoruba religion is not, in quotes, traditional religion. It's Yoruba religion.
It's called Ifa religion. It's called Ifa religion.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what is universally called Ifa spirituality religion.
Yeah, some call it Isheshe. There are different names for it out there. I wouldn't call Igbo religion.
In the National Institute of Religion, it's called the Ifa religion.
Yeah, it's possible.
I remember right.
And incidentally, it's one of the most studied African religions, if not the outright most studied African religions.
It's the most studied African religion.
Yeah.
In the world.
Yeah. So the point I'm making is that it is a fully fledged, and not just fully fledged, but globally relevant religion in itself, because there are there are offshoots of Ifa religion that are established in South America today. In fact, there are places in, I think, Brazil, where variants of the
In
Yoruba
Brazil, yes, they
language
have big shrines.
are spoken. Yeah, stuff like that. So they still follow Chango. They pronounce it as Chango. I think it's Casang. I don't know how to pronounce it,
No,
but
but
it's
that was
it's like a direct descendant of
slave trade
Shango.
wahala now.
Yeah, that's my point.
That's
Like
slave trade
it has
wahala.
that global.
Mm.
It went there through via the slave trade. It's present in
Slave trade, yeah.
Haiti. It's present in Brazil. It's present in Colombia. Different places like that. So
Portugal, yes.
yeah, there's that. Yeah. How did I even get here, Seth? I was saying something before I got.
You're saying you had this friend that you were chatting with, like you're talking about the accusation
Oh
of
yeah,
scientism and
exactly. Yeah,
Western
thank
stuff.
you. So we had a very long conversation, him and me, and I think that conversation is probably still on Twitter. He was a Christian before, he and I were Christians together. We used to argue Christian doctrine on Facebook. I beg your pardon. And then I became an atheist. He became an Ifa person. Because the Holy Spirit is so inept, like can't keep his people around. So, so we both went separate ways like that. So we reconnected on Twitter, and then back then we used to argue about Christianity, him and me. Now we had another completely different set of arguments, and we had several backs and forths. But this charge of you people think science knows everything. You people think Western science knows everything. He kept bringing that up several times, and he kept saying things like Western knowledge is not the only way of knowing things. That there are Yoruba people also have their own form of science. They have their own Big Bang cosmology. The way I think it was Lori that said that, there are primitive forms of, the modern science that we have, that there are primitive forms of them in Yoruba religion and all that. This guy also said it, that there is Big Bang cosmology in Yoruba. Just the way people say the Big Bang is in the Bible, that in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, is an allusion to the Big Bang, which is completely false, by the way. But that's talk for another day. So,
Yeah.
just the same way Christians say this. This guy also said it that Big Bang is in Yoruba cosmology, this one, that one.
I can confirm
it was
that.
a very interesting discussion. Yeah. So everybody just the fact that all of them are trying to marry science to themselves says a lot about the scientific method.
But the thing is that, like, when you hear somebody say science is not the only way of knowing stuff. Okay, what I do is I don't presuppose that science is the only way of knowing stuff. I say, okay, if you have any other way of knowing something, please tell me about it and let's apply it and see how it works.
Sorry, can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, we
Yeah,
can
we
hear
can
you.
hear you. Oh, she's speaking.
I think I was talking before and nobody was able to hear me. But no,
Oops,
saying that
must be your connection or something.
yeah, I had to leave the room and come back. But no, I was saying I had spoken much earlier, but I was enjoying the conversation. But with regards to the IFA thing, that is something that I found interesting. I started following this. Well, I don't know if I follow him, but I've been listening to this guy named Baba Yoruba on YouTube. So he was raised Muslim, became a Christian pastor, and now he's a Babalawo. And so, like, I'm just interested in different religions, period. And so I've been learning a little bit on that side, what the beliefs are, the culture, the tradition, and things like that. So if anybody is interested, from a credibility standpoint, I don't know how to check that. But if anybody is interested in, like, that side of things as well, that's one person that I listen to. And then at some point I'll start learning about the other traditions as well, particularly my own. So it's interesting that I'm learning somebody else's own before I learn mine, but it's on my books.
I would say
For
that
those who follow me on
I
Twitter,
know Baba Yoba.
I know Baba Yoba. For those who follow me on Twitter, if you guys remember, there was a time I shared this Baba Yoba's video. I shared this video and I shared this podcast. There was a podcast that was featured on where he talked about Yoruba religion in total, and he explained how there's a lot of misconception about Yoruba religion. And it was a fantastic podcast for even me to listen to, because he demystified a lot of things about. Of course, it's not like I agree with what he said, but they sure painted Yoruba religion in a different light. It paints Yoruba religion in a different light when you hear about it from an actual practitioner and not from someone who's biased against
Nollywood,
it, like a
Nollywood.
Christian, for example, or from Nollywood, where, Yoruba religion people are always doing bad, and then they have to get a pastor to come use the Bible
Yeah,
to
when you say the
pray
name of
with
Bro,
Jesus.
bro, every
yeah, that
religion,
kind of
every religious story, sounds cool from a practitioner's point of view. Every religious
yep.
story. I am a martial artist and I happen to do a lot of Chinese martial arts. When you're talking about yoga, I was just laughing. I teach yoga. Okay. If you hear about their own belief and their own system, why the monks were like the monks, and why the abbots are like the abbots, and why the different families of Chinese wushu were the way they were, you would want to find some kind of validity in what they say. But my brother, when it's put to the litmus test, he doesn't really pass the exams. That's just a simple thing. Every religion, from a practitioner's point of view, sounds cool. They give it that they give it that pure representation of what they believe it is. And if you try to understand them, it sounds cool, makes sense. But it is what it is. That's just it.
Okay, I was
It
just going to
is what
say
it
that
is.
if you want to know something, right, follow nature, and you're also nature. Start studying yourself. Nature never lies.
That is actually something that I have thought about. And I think recently I was looking at nature retreats. I was in Peru a couple of years ago, and part of the experience was having a religious shaman come in. And again, some of these things may or may not be real, but being Peru is really mountainous, and so being there made me very curious about some of these things. Thinking back now, I wish I had done the whole ayahuasca experience, but maybe next time. But yeah, that's
Can,
Lori. That's something I'm interested in learning.
can I ask
And,
a question, please?
okay, go ahead.
When we say follow nature or study nature, what part of nature are we talking about? Escape or nature as in the universe?
I'm
Natural
gonna
occurrences.
I'm going to say that first of all, you are nature, and if you can understand that, you can understand every other thing. So what you need to do is study yourself. Start from yourself.
I think that's
Yeah,
in
I
line
think I've
with
done that.
one of the
I
things
think
I
I've done
learned.
that a lot.
I think that's one of the things I learned from Baba Yoba, where he said that God lives in you. And even prior to listening to him, I used to wonder, like, what if we are God? Like, because I feel like 80% of what
We
happens in the life
are.
over.
I,
Yeah,
I think I
Okay,
think I think.
Maverick,
Sorry, if you want.
Maverick,
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
guys are you
Maverick.
guys are calling yourselves good. You are practicing idolatry.
No,
Don't
I'm
know that
coming.
you're gonna
Maverick,
burn in hell.
Maverick, you followed me on Facebook for a long time, right? We've been friends
Yes,
on
yes,
Facebook for a long time, and you know my
yes,
MO. Now, when it
yeah,
comes to saying men are gods, I'd always felt if we had to preach something, we had to be what we preached. Okay, and a lot
yeah,
of people say it sounded very religious. Okay, and
yeah,
talking about studying yourself, you would only study yourself based on the perceptions and your points of view. Okay, that's what I think. Oh, I might be very wrong. Of course, I don't know all, but that's what I think it is. Studying yourself and knowing. But this is how far I've gone. I had I sent this. Sorry, my network cracking. I sent
yeah, sure.
this.
Okay.
Oh, okay. I sent this thesis I came up with. I sent it to this science body like that, and I'll share it with all of us here. While we were thinking about the Big Bang and the beginning of nature, this is what I thought it was. This is what I came to some kind of questioning about. I'm like, what if this world is walking in ripples, where it goes to a particular point, bounces off and comes back again and flows to the middle, bounces off itself and continues so much that when you're trying to look for the beginning of this ripple, all you keep getting is a chain of ripples from one end to another end of a particular spectrum. And so all of what we call time and what we call existence is just running through these phases, coming back, bouncing upon itself, and then going out again. more like a ripple than an oscillating wave. So I had this feedback from a couple of NASA and oh shit, cracking who's. I had this feedback from a couple of NASA and International Space. What was their name again? Some International Space, whatever science within India. They said good theory would look into it, and it opens up a lot of ends. Like, are you trying to say the Big Bang wasn't real? And if that is true, then a lot of the way we understand matter too can change and traveling within jump points and light speed. That's what I was told. That was 4 days ago. What I'm saying is the way somebody else studies himself and nature and the way some other person too might understand the study of himself and nature would differ based on their points of view or what they are into or how far they've gone into what they are going into. And while I'm not discrediting anything, I try to see if I'll make a balance with all of this, because there's this me trying to doing my martial art and telling people about acupuncture, and there's still me telling people to man go get yourself some, go get the chiropractor to crack you up, it will be better. There's still me telling you physical exercise and then and food, and there's still me telling you mental study, and it's breaking some points when they have to coordinate all of these facts. They're all facts because they exist and they work. Okay, to correlate all these facts and then put them together, and then you try to draw a line around these different facets and bind them together. They just won't sit together because one will be at a distance from the other. Okay, so in what's her name? Enore talked about going mountain hiking and all that. Beautiful. I would like to have that kind of experience. I would like to, as we just spoken now, I'll just take that time out. The last time I went fishing was like 20 years ago. Last time I went to hunts was like 20 years ago. Same time. I'll try to do that. Olori says I should get to discover myself. I've done that, but I would like to discover other people. And I think discussing with you this evening alone has allowed me the openness of mind to go search for other things that I've not been privy of too. And all these discussions, I believe they are healthy because I would learn, a couple of things from them and then move on with them. And in discovering myself, I've done myself the best service by listening to other notions and points of view, and it's only going to expand my mind better. So what I'm trying to say is knowledge is endless. And with all these discussions, I think we can share more, learn more, and then grow. I mean, I'm having a good time. Thanks for making my night sweet to all of everybody. I forget to say thank you later.
I think Tosin wants to talk.
Yeah, Tosin, you want to say something? You've not spoken yet. So can you please go on?
Honestly, I just, I came in and I've been listening to what people have been saying, just trying to get the hang of what exactly we're discussing, but it seems we're just like free balling, having a regular conversation. So, I guess from what I'm listening, what I can understand, it seems like we're just trying to understand how do we access our own spirituality. Or is that does that make sense?
Can you
Is
be
that
audible, please?
Well, you can't hear me? Hold on 1 second. Is that better?
Yeah, it's better now.
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay. I said I just came into the room and I just heard everybody discussing, and it seems as if we're all discussing how to access our spirituality. And I'm just listening, and a lot of things that have been said make sense to me. Just trying to study yourself, trying to be curious about the reality that we're all existing in. That makes sense in terms of just existing day to day. I mean, like you guys have said a lot of wonderful things, and it's just been listening has been nice. Like I didn't really know about the Baba Yoruba person, so like after this happened, I'm going to try and do my own research, see what exactly, because even the religion of Yoruba can just give us a perspective into how like Yoruba people used to be before Christianity came to Nigeria. So even though I might not necessarily believe in it, but it just as a Benjamin said, we're always learning. It's just nice to just see your perspective and just make your own religion as you go day by day. Just try to be conscious of how you treat other people and how you treat your own self. So just nice to listen on this, and not really much to add right now, but yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So this is a little bit off topic, but I just wanted to say, Tosin, um, I sympathize with you. I sympathize with you. And anybody who checks your profile will see why.
Okay, I was going to say that to
I'm
Benjamin.
a Chelsea fan. So.
I just saw it now.
Oh my god, this kind
Man,
That was funny. That was very
that's
funny.
my
That was a
religion.
no
Like I can't let that religion go.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Please subscribe up Apple, Spotify, Google, YouTube, and other places podcasts are available. Then rate and review. Share with your friends safely. Check out the links in the show notes below for links that you find useful and relevant. And have a great week. I will catch you on the next one.